the neon lights of Tokyo blurred into a watercolor mess, smeared across the rain-soaked pavement. I pulled my coat collar tighter, but the icy droplets still found their way down my neck. It was my own fault, really. Staying late to finish that report meant I'd missed the last train home. Just then, my phone buzzed. A message from a coworker, Kenji Yuki. Don't take the subway tonight. There's a train called Mabaroshi. The phantom train. It sometimes appears after midnight. They say it's dangerous. I rolled my eyes. Just another urban legend to scare the new hires? Still, the station was the only place with any light, so I hurried down the steps. The air in the station was thick and damp, a heavy mix of mildew and disinfectant that stung my nostrils. The fluorescent lights flickered overhead, casting a sickly, weak glow on the empty platform. Well, not entirely empty. A few shadowy figures stood perfectly still, their faces pale and blurred, like smudged photographs. My footsteps echoed in the silence, bouncing off unseen walls in a way that felt unnatural. And then, I felt Ita whisper, brushing past my ear. It was soft, distant, impossible to understand, but it made the hair on my arms stand up. That's when it arrived. A decrepit, moss-green train slid into the station without a sound. No announcement crackled over the speakers, no rumble of wheels on the track. The doors opened with a deafening screech of rusted metal that made me flinch. I hesitated, but the thought of spending the night on a cold, wet street pushed me forward. I stepped inside. The air was suffocating, thick with the smell of mold and something else. Something sickly sweet. It was the scent of faded flowers, mixed with old, dry blood. The doors slammed shut, and the train began to move. The sound wasn't the usual grind of steel on steel. It was a horrifying crunch, like bones being snapped one by one. I looked out the window, expecting the familiar dark tunnels of the Tokyo Metro. Instead, I saw impossible landscapes drifting by. A silent, snow-covered forest, an abandoned wooden village under a gray sky, a shoreline shrouded in a thick, lifeless fog. This isn't my route home, I whispered, my heart hammering against my ribs. I glanced around at the other passengers. An old woman in a worn, faded kimono sat bolt upright. A man in a business suit, so drenched it looked like he'd walked through a waterfall, stared straight ahead. A young girl, maybe 7 or 8, sat alone, silent tears tracing clean paths down her dusty cheeks. But they were all unnervingly still, their eyes hollow and glassy, like wax figures in a macabre museum. The train then slowed, gliding to a stop at a station with no name on its signs. And then, everything went black. The lights were gone. In the suffocating darkness, I heard it. Heavy, ragged breathing. Right behind me, the air turned ice-cold, smelling of damp earth and decay. I froze, too terrified to even breathe. A raspy voice whispered directly into my ear. "Are you a lost soul?" Too. My whole body went rigid. Just as quickly as they'd gone out, the lights flickered back on. The carriage was empty. The old woman, the man, the crying girl all gone. Vanished. On the seat directly opposite me sat a single Japanese doll. It was dressed in a crimson kimono, its delicate porcelain face spider-webbed with cracks. Its glass eyes, cold and dark, were fixed on me. "No, this can't be real," I stammered, fumbling for my phone. No signal, of course. But that wasn't the worst part. My wallpaper happy photos of me and my sister, Akari, at last summer's festival was gone. In its place was a black and white image of an old wooden house, nestled in a dense forest. A small, indistinct figure stood in one of the windows, watching. My blood ran cold. I knew that house. It was my grandmother's home in Hokkaido, abandoned for years. Abandoned since Akari died. The memories hit me like a physical blow. A flood I'd spent a decade holding back. 10 years ago, during a winter holiday at that very house, Akari and I were playing hide-and-seek in the woods. Grandma had just given Akari a beautiful doll, the one in the crimson kimono, and a bitter jealousy had twisted inside me. "Follow me," I'd said, leading her deeper and deeper into the forest. "We'll find real treasure." Then the blizzard hit. The world turned white. I panicked. I was older, I should have protected her, but I ran. I ran home alone, leaving her behind. They found her body 3 days later. Her small, frozen hands were still clutching that red kimono doll. The train began to move again, plunging into a tunnel so dark it felt like the end of the world. But at the far end, a faint light grew, revealing the silhouette of that same wooden house from the photograph. The train doors screeched open. Outside wasn't a station platform, it was a frozen forest, the ground thick with snow, the trees like skeletal fingers reaching for the sky. A small child in a thin summer yukata stood with her back to me. A soft, familiar voice drifted through the cold air. "Yuki." It called, "I've been waiting for you." The child turned. It was Akari. Her face was pale. Her eyes were hollow, but she was smiling a sad, broken smile. "Why did you leave me?" she asked, her voice a fragile echo. "It's so cold out here." Tears, I hadn't realized I was holding back, streamed down my face. "I'm sorry, Akari," I choked out, the words tearing from my throat. "I'm so sorry." Without a second thought, I stepped off the train and onto the snow. The instant my feet touched the ground, the doors slammed shut behind me. The Mabaroshi train, the phantom carrier of lost souls and hearts heavy with guilt, flickered and vanished back into the darkness. I was left alone in the endless, frozen forest of my memory, forever searching for a forgiveness I could never reach. At dawn, station workers found a woman unconscious on an empty platform in Tokyo. She was alive, but her eyes were vacant, staring at nothing. Her doctors said she was in a state of shock, muttering in a fevered dream. And clutched tightly in her hand was a single, perfect maple leaf from a type of tree that doesn't grow anywhere in the city. And over, she whispered the same 2 words. "I've found you." This story is a haunting reminder of how guilt can shape our reality. If you ever feel overwhelmed by grief or regret, please know that talking to someone can make all the difference. There are people who want to help. Thank you for listening to my story tonight. If you enjoyed this journey into the dark, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more tales from the shadows. Stay safe, and watch out for the last train.